Let me see if it... Ow. 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 Okay, so I really just wanted to make this video so that I could celebrate my milestone. It turns out that I recently hit a negative $50,000 net worth. Yay! Now, this may not really sound like a milestone to you guys, but to me, it's definitely a signifier of how far I've come in my financial fitness journey and in my debt-free journey. My net worth used to be about negative $130,000. I've definitely come a long way, and I want to make sure that I'm celebrating my win, and I want to share with you how I actually got to this point and where I'm gonna go from here. If you guys have seen any of my recent budget videos, you'll see that I talk about my net worth during them. That's something that is truly a measure of your financial stability. However, when I was little, the first time I heard about a net worth was when someone mentioned that X celebrity was worth X million dollars, and I thought it was the most bizarre thing ever. I could not believe that there was a number that quantified the value of a human. But then, of course, I went over and looked up Taylor Swift's net worth. Now I know that it doesn't really mean that this person's life has X amount of value. However, it is a helpful number to know if you're trying to gauge how financially secure you are. In terms of my financial fitness journey, I see this as a very important factor. A net worth is essentially what you owe minus what you own. So if you can do addition and subtraction, you can easily calculate a net worth. Now, if you're new to my channel and don't really understand why I have such a low net worth, well, I'll tell you. In May 2018, I graduated with a chemical engineering degree from a private 4-year university that had a very high tuition. My response to that was to take out student loans, both federal and private, in order to afford to attend the school with full room and board for every year. Obviously, this was a very dumb, selfish decision on my part because I felt like I deserved to go to the school for all of the hard work I put in towards my education my entire life up until then. So I was determined to go there one way or another. The school did offer me a decent financial aid package. They actually paid for at least half of my tuition per year, but either way, I still wasn't able to afford the full cost of the school without taking any loans out. So I ended up taking out $27,000 in federal loans, $76,000 in private student loans, and as I said in my previous videos, I knew what I was getting into. I knew how interest worked, I knew what was gonna happen when I graduated and how much debt I would be in, but I don't think I felt the gravity of it yet. It was kind of the first big financial decision I made, you know, starting at 17 years old. Even though I understood what it meant numerically, I don't think I fully understood the emotional impact that it would have on me in the future. So after I graduated, I was able to start working immediately, and I'm so happy for that. But I do remember my very first work-study job. The first hour that I worked, I was so happy with myself. It was my first job ever. And then when I first got my paycheck, I was so excited. I knew it was gonna be really low, and then I opened the paycheck up and it was like $7.25 for that 1 hour that I worked. I guess my boss at the time, she was like, hey, you can buy yourself a slice of pizza. And she wasn't wrong. A slice of pizza from a dining hall would have probably cost that much. So although I wasn't really expecting that much from that 1 hour of work, it did give me perspective on how much people had to work to earn a certain amount of money. That was kind of my first experience with that. So you can imagine what the impact of my first paycheck at my first real job actually had on me. When I did get paid for the first time, I was starting to think, wow, I have all this money that I've never had before, and I need to make sure that I spend it wisely. Now, while this was happening, I had also just taken out a lease on a car so that I could actually commute to work and commute back to my parents' house if I needed to, as well as starting a lease on a new apartment so that I could be close to work and not have an hour and a half daily commute. So in that sense, the car made sense. In another sense, did I need a brand new car on a lease? Probably not. But in a way, all of these things piling up really made me think about what I was gonna do when the grace period of my loans after 6 months of graduation was over. I had to start getting serious about my finances. The only way to do that in my head was to get on a budget. And then I had the disturbing realization that I would have to face the balance on all of my student loans. And by that point, the $76,000 in private student loans that I had borrowed had actually grown to $96,000. Yep, that was $20,000 of interest. And then I finally got the courage to look at my federal loan servicer account, and I saw that I had $27,865 of debt. I looked at that and I was so shocked because I fully thought it was maybe under $20,000 of loans there, because I would be taking them out in such small increments, like $3,000 this year, $5,000 that year, and then it just added up. I immediately was like, I am paying off all the interest on this account right now. That was my first ever major student loan payment. I know that in my sophomore year of college, I for some reason had logged into that account and I saw $175 of interest and I paid that. I just wish I would have kept doing it. The $865 that I paid after graduation really kickstarted this whole thing for me. And that's a huge part of the reason why I started this channel. I wanted to talk about my debt-free journey to show that other people can do this too, especially my peers. Now, if you have seen my last budget video, you'll remember that I was really excited to get to the negative $50,000 milestone. And at that point, I wasn't quite expecting it to happen in April. In fact, I was planning on it happening in June. This is what happened. In that video, I mentioned that I wanted to use a different budgeting app. A lot of you guys thankfully suggested Mint. Turns out I actually use Mint every single day. The difference is that I never actually used it for my budget. I kind of just had it on my phone. It has all of my accounts linked to it. I never felt like actually personalizing it because I just felt like it was another app that I had to put information in, and I was already using the other app, and I just really didn't feel like customizing it in any way. So even though I've been using it for pretty much almost 3 years, I'm embarrassed to say, I haven't actually been using it to its full potential. And so I actually took the time to adjust some of the things that I thought I couldn't do on the app. For example, I had this issue where sometimes if a transaction happened at the very end of the month, it would be classified as the first day of the next month, and that would annoy me because that transaction was budgeted for in my previous month on my other app. So I wanted to keep everything within a certain month, and I didn't know that you could change the dates, and someone mentioned that in my comment section, and I immediately tried it and it worked. I'm still in the process of familiarizing myself with it, but as I've been doing that, I've been learning a lot about different features that Mint has, and I did not realize that you could add property to your net worth on Mint, and that's why I had my own separate spreadsheet of net worth, because the net worth that Mint gave me was never correct because I had already paid off my car and therefore did not have a car lease account that showed up in my net worth. It just shows at 0, and it basically pretends that I don't own my car. While I was on the desktop version, I realized that I could add property, and it actually asked me about the details of my vehicle. I've been meaning to go on Kelley Blue Book, but this is what I did for my net worth spreadsheet because I was too lazy to do that. I actually used the estimated residual value of my car in May 2021, which is when my car lease would have ended. But usually the car companies will give you a lower value on there, and I knew that that value was probably lower than what my car actually costs now, especially because I barely drove it, and so it's probably worth on the higher end of other cars of the same make and model just because it has such a low mileage. So after putting my information on Mint, they calculated that my car was worth $15,801. And so not only did it correct the net worth that was on Mint, it also drastically increased it past the point where I had even calculated on Google Sheets. I can now proudly say that my net worth is $49,500. Obviously it got here quicker because I didn't bother to look up the actual value of an asset, even if it is a depreciating asset, but I did actually reach this milestone. It's just taken me a little while to figure it out. So this is kind of cheesy, but I just wanted to take this time to say to my younger self, thank you for getting on a budget, and thank you for sticking to it. Even thank you to myself from only a few months ago who decided to move back in with her parents because she could throw more money at student loan debt if she didn't have to throw it at rent. And I can honestly say, even though I've only been living here for a couple months now, this has probably been one of the smartest financial decisions I've ever made, and I know that only good things can come from it. Also, thank you so much to my parents for letting me live here. I am beyond lucky. Now that's what I did, but how can you do this too? How can you get to a negative $50,000 net worth? Of course, I'm just kidding, unless you do have a lower net worth than that, which is entirely possible because that was me like last week before I got paid. The biggest thing that you need to think about, honestly, is why you're doing this. Why do you want to reach a higher net worth? Why do you want to pay off debt? Why do you want to increase your income? What is the purpose of that? Do you want to go travel? Do you want to be financially stable if you're not? Do you want to be able to retire at 65 or earlier? These are all really valid reasons, and once you actually figure out why you're doing this, why you want to do this, and what your motivation is to actually stick with it, that is honestly the most important thing. After you have that, which is essentially the emotional component of this, you have to start thinking about kind of the physical component of it. And that means taking a look at your finances. Look at all of your accounts, add them up, figure out your net worth. If you have no idea what you're working with, you're not gonna be able to build a plan to get you somewhere else. You need to know your starting point to get to the finish line. I know that looking at my accounts was honestly the scariest part for me. Like, I was so overwhelmed with all the numbers. Although the numbers may be scary, they are not something that defines you. They do not put a value on your life. And it helps you get an idea of how financially stable you may be, and it helps you figure out where you want to go. Look at the number and devise a plan. Part of that plan is definitely writing up a budget. I am a huge proponent of budgets. You can make your budget as restrictive as you want it to be. I make my budget very restrictive because I am so intent on finishing this goal, because that is what's bringing me down emotionally. And if I need to spend on something essential or something that I really want, I will make room in my budget for it. You are writing your budget. You are making it up. That's all you. If the budget that you write is controlling you, that is a big problem, and you need to really reevaluate how you wrote it. I would say start as leniently as you can, and then if you feel like you can handle a more restrictive budget while making sure that you're healthy, you're fed, you have housing, then see what you can cut out. I would say for beginners, just don't make it too restrictive and see if you can stick to it, and then challenge yourself to maybe work a little harder towards that one goal that you have. I have a couple videos on this, but if you have student loans, definitely look into refinancing them, especially if you have private loans. Now, if you have federal loans, maybe reconsider if you want to refinance or not. Unless you're getting a very good rate, I would probably not refinance those, just because you get a lot of protections from the federal government. There is no freeze on interest rates on my private loans. That's why I've actually refinanced them 5 times now, and my current servicer is Earnest. So if you want to refinance your student loans with Earnest, I do have a referral link in my description box where you can earn $200, and I can earn $200 if you actually refinance your loans. Refinancing is such a great way to lower your interest rates and essentially lower how much money you're gonna pay over the life of your loan, which will in turn help you pay it off a lot quicker. Now, if you don't have any debt but you want to work towards building a certain amount of savings or a down payment or putting more towards retirement, really think about your purchases. You know, list what's essential and what's not essential. And if something is non-essential and you can maybe cut down on it, definitely try it. Maybe even try it just for 1 month, see how you live without the certain purchase. Most importantly, do not buy anything that you can't actually afford. If the money is not in your bank account, don't just put it on a credit card and forget about it. That's bad. Don't do that. Those are the main things that actually helped me get to this point. I'm always interested in learning about more ways to increase my income or decrease my expenses. It's honestly a mass balance on your finances. That's all it is. Anyone can do this. I absolutely believe in you. Even if you hit the negative 50K net worth, keep going. You'll hit the $0 net worth soon enough. And that's what I'm gonna tell myself every day until I actually do.